All right, welcome to this episode of Market Shares. I'm your host, Tony Blodgett. And man, it's so much easier to get into these calls when you have some good music to kind of get the juices flowing. Tonja, I see you're enjoying the music. I want to welcome Tonja Wortham to this conversation and this episode of Market Shares. Welcome.
Thank you, Tony. It's great to be here with you. And it is really good music.
Well, music makes everything better. It's like, when you're driving in your car or whatever you're doing, it can set the tone. And so gotta love the music. Well, hey, I'm really excited for this conversation. You and I have a history that goes way, way back. I think the story of how we met is probably an inspirational story for people just to think about. You never know when a conversation or a phone call is going to lead to something else. Cause we kind of met on accident. You called me not really knowing, my situation at my company. And then it ends up that we end up working together. And so, we'll maybe get into that a little bit and tell that story, but, welcome to the call. And, why don't you just introduce yourself briefly and what's your role right now?
My name, as you said, is Tonja Wortham. I am the Business Development Manager here for New American Funding in the Northwest region. And so I am so excited to be speaking with you today and also speaking about what we're doing up here in the Northwest region and what makes us really special. And you're right, we do have, a lot of history together, a compelling story. And, just the nature of connecting and networking with people. I think that what we have now after all of these years is a great testament to making that phone call and reaching out and just connecting with people. It's that simple.
Yeah. Well, let's tell that story because it is so compelling. I was asked by someone the other day, like, can you think back to one relationship that had it not happened, you might not be on the same trajectory you're at in your business. And you probably don't think about it in the same way that I do, but I can tell you that, so here's what happened. So I used to work at a mortgage company that was owned by my dad. So I started the mortgage business working for my dad. It was a great opportunity. And really, I was super happy at the time that me and Tonja connected. I was the vice president. I was running retail operations. Life was good. I had no thoughts about making a move. And so Tonja was recruiting for a company that her husband owned, or they owned it, and with another business partner. And so she's so consistent about making her calls that she just called me, I think, out of the real estate book and said, "Hey, Dave and Lee would really like to have a conversation with you and, and talk to you." And, it felt like such a personal invitation to me. I'm like, yeah, I would love to network and connect with Dave and Lee. And so I came up there for lunch that day, and she comes out right as I walked in the door. She goes, I feel like maybe I made a little bit of a mistake. I didn't realize like you worked for your dad and you're super happy where you're at. And, if you don't want to have lunch with these guys, I would understand. Like, I was just calling you out of the real estate book. And I'm like, look, I love sharing my story and networking and meeting people. And so me and Dave and Lee, we did sit down for lunch that day. And I didn't have any interest in making a move. But what it did do is it allowed me to build a relationship with those guys that, sometime down the road, when I did, for other reasons, decide to make a move, I had that relationship established with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to go work at Mortgage Advisory Group. And ultimately, as many of you know that watch this, I was the president and chief operating officer of that company for many years until we sold it. And so, it was really the stepping stone that led to my executive development in the mortgage industry and those opportunities. And it happened because, Tonja, not having a filter on who she calls, just reached out, and you just never know. So I don't know. I think that's an awesome story. And I got to thank you for, having that personality that you're just not afraid to make the call. You're not afraid to do the things that hold most people back from their next best step. And you've always been that person. And so it's inspiring to see you work and how your approach is, but it also meant something to me in my life as well. So anyway, cool story.
That's great to know. Back at you. I think that if you were to look at the trajectory of my career, going through the mortgage advisory group years really honed my leadership skills and taught me how to, become a better recruiter. I did a lot of business development back then, and I found my passion. And so from there, as it was a kicking off point for me as well to go into leadership through Keller Williams as a team leader, and then ultimately gave me somewhere to land. If I was going to take another position, I would never work anywhere else. So I've always said that, the joy of being able to come back to essentially a family and a group of people that I had worked with for so many years, and we had built something really special. Coming in the door, that was really awesome. I have to say, though, that after being on your team and working with New American Funding, it's so much better than I could have ever imagined. New American Funding is really a company that is so solid and has such a great culture and morale, and that's important to me. And, we had a call this morning, an all-team meeting with Jeff Qualiwag, and 11 months into it, he's the head of strategies and for corporate, and was sharing with us all the great ideas and things that are being implemented. I know that a lot of that has to do with you taking over as the executive vice president. So there really couldn't be a better place to be in the mortgage industry right now than in the Northwest region of New American Funding. If you're looking for flat leadership, you're not going to find it anywhere else. The guy that runs the whole nation also runs our region. So, and I think that's important because people have ideas. They have. I talk to folks in our region as well as at other companies, and so many people have ideas that they want implemented. They have great input on the systems, the technology, loan programs. They have nobody to talk to about it. Even if they've shared it with their manager, it doesn't go any further. So in our region, I know that you have many of the people in our region involved in those national decisions. They're helping to give input, and anyone here can just go straight to you and share their vision with you. That's pretty exciting, and it's a really great place to be, Tony. So thank you.
Yeah, no. Well, the thing about New American Funding, I got here 8 years ago, is that, and I now that I am in this executive role, I've talked to Christy and Rick and Patty about it, and the goal is always to have as few layers as possible, and really, my position is really an extension of the other SVPs, right? I feel like, we were all running our separate divisions around the nation, and to kind of have a unified voice just made sense. And, I kind of got elected to be that person, but there's very few layers anywhere in this organization, and we want to make sure that we keep it that way. It requires a lot of work. I mean, you have to be involved in a lot of things and wear a lot of hats, but it also keeps you close to the field. And,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have your ear to the ground and know what's going on in a sales organization, even when you're the size that we are. It's just one of the things that makes us unique and special. But yeah, it is cool to be able to continue to run this region while taking on the responsibilities and opportunity of the national role as well. And look, if I thought that things were better served by adding another layer of management here in the Northwest, we would do that. But you know what? Like you said, our group we've all worked together for so long, and the relationships run so deep that, I just don't feel that there's a need for that. And people know that if you want to get a hold of me, you can just give me a call.
Yeah.
Well, let's back up a little bit and talk about kind of your journey through real estate and what ended you here, because, you started on the real estate agent side of the business, and then you
Mm-hmm.
transitioned over to mortgage, and then you ended up going back to the real estate side of the business in more of a leadership role. So maybe talk us through that journey a little bit, and kind of why the moves were made that you made.
Well, I started out as a real estate agent because I worked at Boeing for 9 years and I hated it. So, and when I got married to Dave, he just, said, "What is it that you want to do?" And I got into real estate. I really love real estate. I love the real estate and mortgage industry, actually, and hit the ground running. I was doing really well. As you know, Dave and Lee put their heads together and decided that they wanted to open a mortgage company. I was doing both for a long time. I was always just helping out with mortgage advisory group. And, I was doing clock hour classes, and I started helping to recruit a little bit and then a little bit more. And And so I just sort of evolved out of real estate and into working in the mortgage side. I was a real estate agent the whole time though. And so if you remember, I used to find all our properties and stuff for our branches, at least here in Washington.
Right.
And then I was offered the opportunity to go be a team leader at Keller Williams, which is the brokerage that I've been affiliated with in the past. And it was a really good opportunity for me. I loved it. It was a way for me to take the skills and abilities that I built on the mortgage side of it and see what I could do in real estate. And then I was offered to go to Bellevue and be the team leader there. So I did that for a little while longer. And then we moved to Belize. I left there. We moved to Belize for a year and came back. And, I love to be involved in the industry. I still felt like I had a lot more to offer. And so I, reached out. I actually reached out to Brittany, your executive assistant, and was just having a talk with her, and she called you, and that's kind of how all this evolved. I have to say that this has been the best experience of all the years that I've had, though, because owning a company, there's a lot of pressure and stress that goes along with that. And then as a team leader, I had hundreds of people that reported up to me, and in this position, I get to really do the things that I love to do. I coach some of the loan officers. I do a lot of events and business development, and then I am helping to grow the region as well. So all the things that I love to do, I get to do in this position, and I get to work with all these people that are so great. One of the most important things to me is culture and leadership. And I think that right now in our industry, especially leadership is so important. We see companies out there crumbling, people are shifting and moving. And I know that the leadership that we have in our region is solid as a rock. And I know other people feel that way as well, because I talk to them all the time. So, there's never been a better time to be surrounded by really strong leaders than right now in this industry.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of fear in this industry right now, and you see it everywhere. I'm curious, what are you hearing from loan officers? What are their concerns? What are their fears? And then what are you telling them about that? Because I know that you have some people that you're, talk off the ledge once in a while, people that are, not feeling like, their business is going the way that they thought. And I know that you're always able to have those conversations and make them feel better. So maybe share what are those fears and how are you talking people through this difficult market?
That's a good question. There's two different conversations. One of them is with loan officers that are experienced and have been through something like this. And that's very often totally different than the conversation I'm having with somebody that hasn't been in the business as long and hasn't gone through a downturn like this. For someone that's been through it, we really just get down to accountability, the nuts and bolts of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, time blocking, reaching out to, build your business in different business streams, real estate agents, financial planners, et cetera, and using the time that you have right now to solidify those relationships. Make sure that you're using all the technologies, the tools, the resources that we have to offer, because a lot of times a company like ours offers so much, but the loan officers don't slow down and implement it. Right. And so I really want to make that balance for them, to make sure that they're getting all of the resources and all the support and everything that we've promised to them. And it's now a partnership. I also really focus on growing people as leaders. That is an important part of how I coach and talk to people. Is I want to know, how are you feeling, but why are you feeling that way? Right. Let's dig into that a little bit and find out if it's just you reacting, or if you really have, nowhere else to go. And so I've been able to navigate a lot of people through those. I've had 3 of those conversations today, not with people that were on the ledge, just helping them to generate some more ideas, talk about how they can use the programs. I had a buyer accepted conversation this morning with a loan officer who was saying, the market's starting to just soften up a little bit, and the cash offers aren't as prevalent. Is this a tool that is still really important? And I said, it's really important. It was never meant to be the only solution. It's a tool in your toolbox that is really unique to our company. So you should be sharing that with all of your realtor partners and your clients, because right now is July. The market is always slow in July. It's, people are on vacation, they're getting ready for the school year, they're outside doing other things. When the market starts heating up a little bit more, those buyers are going to come back, and some of them are going to be looking for just a house, and some of them are going to be looking for their dream home. And buyer accepted is for those people that are looking for their dream home, because they don't, when they hone in on it, they want to get that house. If they're contingent, if they are in competition for it, they have that tool in their toolbox. And so reminding our loan officers of all the things, I could go on for an hour about the long list of unique value propositions that we offer. It's just a matter of them knowing what they are. And then the second part of that, and I know Keller talks about this in his coaching all the time, consistency. You can't run out there and do something once and have a really good result from it, go do it the second time, not get a good result, and then stop. You have to decide what are the activities you're going to do. You have to time block them, and you have to do them consistently. And eventually you will get results from them. Everybody that is a top producer on every single video and podcast that we've ever watched in our whole entire life, and everybody on stage, they all say the same thing, just in a different way, maybe a little bit different flavor, but it's always the same message in this industry.
There's no doubt about it. And what I think people tend to forget is that the activities that you're doing today, they pay off in 60 to 90 days from now, which means that if you're not getting the results you want today, you really have to look, unfortunately, in the mirror and say, what was I doing 90 days ago or 120 days ago? Especially in this market where, the time between someone gets pre-approved and into contract is a little bit longer right now. And so the good news about that's good and bad. The good news is that you can change your behavior today, and you know that you're going to see a much better result in 60 or 90 days. The bad news is you can't do anything about the deal you don't have today. And so, except you can look back and say, you know what, was I doing everything that I could have been doing 90 days ago? And if not, what it should do is give you some hope and some inspiration that all you have to do is change your perspective, change your behavior, change your attitude today. And with that consistency that you're talking about, you will see different results in 60 to 90 days. That's what I love about this business, is that it doesn't matter what you're funding today, because the work you're doing today pays off in the future. And so any loan officer at any stage of their career who isn't funding the kind of volume they want today can do some specific strategic things that they can put in place over the next 90 days, and they will be at the place of any other top producer. Now, the size of your database and the size of your network, sure, that will have some impact on that. But I assure you that all of us that have been in this industry for any amount of time, we have the network, we have the database. You're probably just not calling out to them. You have agents you've closed transactions with that could now become your prospects that you're reaching out to. And really what I heard you talk about was getting back to the basics. I mean, that's what we have to do right now. Is we got so comfortable and used to loans just flowing in because interest rates were so low that everyone needed to borrow money, and there just wasn't enough capacity in our industry. Well, then everyone wins in that market. Now we're back to the market where you have to actually go out. They say that we're salespeople, we're the hunters. You can't hunt from your chair. You know what I mean? Like, you got to get out in the wilderness and go find those opportunities. And that's just what it takes today. And you know what? That isn't for everybody. There's a lot of people who are opportunistic and get into the mortgage industry during a time of plenty. The job description for a loan officer for the last 2 years, in my opinion, is different than what it is right now. It's not different than what it's been over the last 20 years, but it's different than what it's been over the last couple of years. And so I appreciate you being in a role where you can help people remember that. We do great coaching here. I mean, I coach loan officers, Dan Keller coaches loan officers, but we all have a different approach. You have a little bit different style on how you empower people to be the best version of themselves. Dan's, more tactical sometimes with the things that he has with the call tracker and whatnot. But you know what? All of it is necessary right now. And so let's talk a little bit about recruiting and business development, because this has got to be one of the most difficult jobs in the world. Matter of fact, I mean, I see, memes about, that joke about, recruiters calling them and reaching out on LinkedIn. I mean, it is a a difficult job to reach out to people who in many cases are happy with the company they work with. They get called by recruiters every day, and yet you have to somehow, reach out to them. I guarantee you there's other people that do what you do for a living in recruiting and business development that would love to kind of hear your perspective on this role. It's one of those things that we don't talk about. Like for me, it's like we don't really talk about our recruiters. They're like our secret weapon that go out there and help us, recruit loan officers from other companies. But there's a lot of people who do what you do for a living, and everyone's got a little bit different approach. So maybe talk a little bit about the approach that you take when it comes to being successful, specifically at the part of your job that's geared towards recruiting and bringing new loan officers to our team.
Well, I take more of there's a couple different ways that people recruit in the mortgage industry. One of them is, the constant reaching out on LinkedIn, text messaging, calling, just dialing 100 times a day. And the reason why people do it that way is because you can recruit. What happens is you catch someone on the right time, and then there's the more relational part of it. I just had a call yesterday with a guy who ironically told me his whole story about how he took a real hard blow to his chin back in 2008, kind of lost everything, and had to make a decision. Was he going to stay in this industry and go for it or not? And he decided to, stay in it. It took some counseling and some active things to get his head on straight. However, he told me, I talked to the guy for 2 hours, and he told me basically his whole life story. And I ended up, connecting him with someone else in our organization to continue the conversation. And he said to me at the end of it, I really enjoyed talking to you. I felt like we talked about everything but mortgages and what New American Funding has to offer. Now, not to say that conversation doesn't eventually start, but I just feel like if I'm calling people in the industry, especially in the Northwest, Tony, where I know a lot of these people, if I'm just calling them and, asking them if, do you want to join New American Funding? That's not reflecting really who we are, because in our region, we care about people. We want them to grow their business, and timing is everything. So if I'm building relationships, you and I both know that we've been talking to people for a long time, and then suddenly they join, and, they joined because the timing was right and we were already connected with them. Exactly what happened with you. And I personally feel like that is how it works. We're not a turn 'em and burn 'em type company. When people come and work with us, we want them to stay. We want them to use our tools and resources, grow. There's lots of opportunity. We have people that started as marketing coordinators that are now running our video programs. And there's opportunities to become branch managers and really evolve as a leader. I know that's important to you because that's how you grew. You started as a loan officer and worked your way up, and look at you now. So not everyone wants that. However, I believe that in our organization, if they want that, they can have it. At the end of the day, though, listening to what people say and understanding where it is that they want to go in their career, and seeing if it's a good fit, if they're a good fit for us, if we're a good fit for them, and just, having those conversations, I think is what's most important.
Yeah. Well, I think you really nailed it look, I was actually watching a little podcast or video this morning, and they were talking about cold calling, and that idea of, making 100 calls a day, you could do that, you'll probably get about 1% close rate on that. So if you're cool with 99% of the people rejecting you, and 1%, willing to take a call or take a next follow-up step, that's a way to do it. The challenge is you're going to burn through a lot of people as well. I do think that there is a fine line between, relationship building, which, at some point that has to convert into, is there an opportunity for us to work together? But it starts with building the relationship. And kind of like we've talked about in some other interviews I've done here on this channel, like for loan officers, you can't be married to the outcome. You
Right.
got to realize that a lot of people are happy where they're at, and they're going to be happy there for a decade. I have recruiters that call me, and most of them I ignore, and a couple of them I always have a quick 5-10 minute phone call, not because I'm looking to move, but because I've built a relationship with these people, and there's a mutual respect. They always respect me, that look, I'll talk to you, but don't be high pressure. Don't try to talk bad about my company or any of these sort of things. Like,
Yeah.
be my friend, get to know me, maybe give me some information about what's going on in the marketplace around me. Like, people love information. That's one reason they talk to recruiters. They want to hear what their competition's doing. Sometimes it's just that. Well, hey, we got nothing to hide. Give them a little bit,
Yeah.
show them what's going on. But over time, you're right. It is the relationship, and we have some opportunities coming together right now that have been very long conversations, spanning over years, and now they're turning into, people say, hey, things have now changed with the company that I'm with, and you know what? They have the relationship, and they want to talk more. And we even have people that are just seeing what we're doing from a distance and just reaching out and calling. I do feel so fortunate to work at a company. New American's certainly not the only one, but man, if you work at a company that has a servicing portfolio right now, it definitely gives some stability to the organization, because this is a cycle where, in order to be competitive, everyone has to run a lot thinner margins. No one's really cutting, loan officer compensation or any of those things. So it gets skinny. There's not nearly the amount of profit in the mortgage industry during this season. And that's okay if you have some other way of generating revenue. And a servicing portfolio has always been that just natural hedge against production, because when interest rates go up, the value of your servicing goes up, and that's a more steady inflow of business. Mm-hmm. The runoff is not nearly as high because there's no refinances. And it allows people in a leadership role like myself to, obviously we want to run profitable branches and profitable divisions, but it's not the only thing that's feeding the organization. And not all companies are in that same boat. And this is going to be,
I promise you they're not. I know you know that probably even more than I do. If anyone's watching this that's, at New American Funding or outside of New American Funding, they should listen to you and understand that, maybe 3 years ago when loans were falling out of the sky, it didn't matter as much. But right now, moving forward, our market is going to be a little bit different, especially for, I would say, the next 2-3 years at least. It's going to even out. However, you should be at a company that does have that servicing portfolio, that does have the strong leadership, that is financially sound, that is growing and expanding and not shrinking and taking things away. If you're seeing any of that, then that's a red flag. And I understand that people love the company they work at. They love their branch manager. And that's great. I literally don't know anybody in the mortgage industry anymore who hasn't worked at least one other company. And I can even say that about myself because I've worked at Meg and here. And it's just a good time to be paying attention to where you're at right now and who's going to take you where you want to go in this industry. It may be that you have to make a move in order to set yourself up. There's a lot going on in the industry, and I really hope that people are paying attention to the news and the things that are happening. And New American Funding, especially in the Northwest region, we've always been in the top for retail mortgage lenders. And we have a great reputation in our local industry. You're a past president, WMBA. You've been around for a long time. You've kept your integrity and all that intact all these years. And you have a great reputation. And I think that it's our time to shine. I really do. I think that from what I'm seeing out there and all the people that are starting to call us, that the future looks very bright for us, Tony.
Yeah, I love it, Tonja. Well, as a recruiter, it must be nice to have the phone ring in the other direction a little bit more now than in the past. But yeah, no, we are excited. I'm excited for what we're doing in this region. I'm excited for New American Funding because we have positioned ourselves over the last few years because we're a family-owned company. We have different goals than what a lot of the larger now public companies or companies that are backed by large investment firms or whatever. They have different goals and objectives, and that's fine if that works for them. I just know that we are in a position to invest in our growth and development. And this is an opportunity where there's a handful of companies, and I believe we're one of them, that are really going to capitalize on this shift in the market because there's not a lot of fear about about this depression in volume, and there is more of an opportunity mindset. And just like that call we had with Jeff to kind of unpack all of the new technologies and platforms that we're working on. Man, what an exciting time to be part of what we're doing. Well, Tonja, I want to thank you for coming on today. I mean, what you do can be a very thankless type role in our industry. You know, it really can be, but you find a way to not only do, you know, the hard work of recruiting and rejection and all that, but you're also able to do some business development. I mean, you help us with the real estate community and developing real estate partnerships that we can, you know, hand off to our loan officers. And then of course, the coaching and support that you do, and kind of being a shoulder there for people to lean on. It allows you hopefully to feel a little more well-rounded in your role, not just having to grind the phones every day and get rejected. But I think you play a unique role here. I'm excited to be back working with you again. It's like our careers have come full circle, and we got lots more to accomplish here in the Northwest region and here at New American Funding. So thanks for being on the call today.
Thank you, Tony.
Take
Great
care.
to be a part of New American Funding.
All right. Awesome. Well, you guys, this has been this episode of Market Shares. I love interviewing folks from different aspects of our industry. We talked to loan officers on here. We talked to realtors. Now we're talking to our recruiting and business development leader. So look, you never know what's going to come from an episode of Market Shares. Lots more to unpack in the weeks to come. So if you're enjoying this content, please like, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care and bye for now.